Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today we talk to Juliana Felipe, Chief Revenue Officer at Transfero. We talk about Transfero as one of Brazil's OG crypto companies, its ongoing investment round, and its ambitions to become a crypto and payment infrastructure provider globally. Ju, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here with you today.
You recently joined Transfero as Chief Revenue Officer. Why don't you tell us a bit about your professional background, both maybe pre-crypto and then now in crypto, and tell us about why you decided to join Transfero.
If I think about my career, I had the privilege to start as a headhunter where I could target the market that I would like to build my career at, which is technology, emerging technology. I worked at LinkedIn, which is social media. I worked with WhatsApp messaging and others. And then I found the blockchain, stablecoins, crypto, which I really love. And I believe it's the future of finance and the technology that will stick and have several use cases. If I think about Transfero, the invitation was really amazing in the moment that they are today. I feel like we're talking more about Transfero in the next minutes and during our podcast, but the goal is really to understand how Transfero, Brazilian company that started broadly in Switzerland and several places, can really scale the business today from a bootstrap moment to looking for investors for a first round, which we did not have until now. And it's incredible what they built in blockchain infrastructure with no investment at all. So it's a really huge pleasure to be with them and expanding internationally and really building all the growth team globally for Transfero.
Maybe talk a bit about your previous role with Paxos. I think most folks might remember you or they might know you as being the Paxos person in Brazil, face Paxos in Brazil. And you guys had some really incredible partnerships with some big partners locally. Maybe just talk a bit about that experience. And I think that was kind of your baptism into crypto, but maybe what did you benefit from that experience?
Perfect. So it was a huge pleasure to work for Paxos. I really led the operation and structured in Brazil and Latam. Paxos is the most regulated company in the space. It's really well known with great partners, as you mentioned, Nubank, PayPal, and the company really focused on regulation. They are trust chartered in the United States. They really have it all. And it was a huge pleasure to structure their business in Brazil and Latin America, especially because, as we know, crypto, stablecoins, blockchain business has been built as we speak. So it was really amazing to build their redundancies, reputation, conversation with regulators, to build their partnerships locally, and really in an innovative environment as Brazil. For them was really a huge experience, and I'm really grateful to be a part of the team. I could learn with amazing people there as well. The team is amazing, the leaders, and it was really a really important role for me to get in the space and really to be well known and to learn more about it and how to do it in a regulated way. And it kind of connects a lot with Transfero because Transfero is vast regulated in Switzerland, Bahamas. Here we have the IP in Argentina. So the mindset is really similar if we think about regulation and how to build the business so far.
And then on the topic of Transfero, Transfero is really one of these sort of OG Brazil crypto companies, been around, as you mentioned, for quite some time now, since 2015, 2016. But for those who maybe not be familiar, could you maybe walk us through what's been the story of Transfero over these years?
Sure. So Transfero has almost 10 years. The partners were all Brazilians, but the business started as regulatory context in Switzerland. And mainly it's an infrastructure, a blockchain infrastructure company that enables end-to-end solutions to move the money around. So if we think about the solutions that we offer today, we have banking as a service, pay-ins and payouts, on and off ramps. We have our network of stablecoins. Today we have the BRZ, which is the most important and relevant real stablecoin pair with Brazilian reais. We have ARZ, which is paired with Argentine Pesos. And soon we will have one more in Latin America. And we enable the money movement in our infrastructure with no intermediaries between countries. So as I mentioned, we have regulation in several places. Today, we're working in several more to be really one global money mover through the blockchain with full transparency and safety.
And that, yeah, I know the BRZ stablecoin, I think, is probably what Transfero is perhaps best known for. It's been around. This particular product has been around for probably at least 4 or 5 years now. And at one point, I heard that this was actually the largest non-US dollar denominated stablecoin in the world. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or if that ever was true, but that's just I'd heard that from someone at some point. Um, but maybe like who is, maybe just kind of give us some color on like who's using these particular products, particularly the BRZ and maybe also the Argentina stablecoin as well. But what are kind of the main use cases for these particular products right now?
Today, we work with several markets. If we think about import and export, if we think about any company that don't want to have so many bureaucracy and structure in Brazil and be able to move the money around, there are several use cases. As we are last year transacted kind of $1 billion, and this year in October, we have the mark at 1.5 billion. So we're really growing year over year with several use cases. But I feel like all the markets that needs to move the money, if we think about payrolls, cross-border payments, there's a lot of use cases that we're doing. But now we're really focusing on utility. So soon we'll be able to provide as a PR case if we have the checkout digital solution where merchants and a lot of stores can accept digital money like stablecoins and crypto. And there's so many white labels, crypto as a service, credit cards that you accept stablecoins and crypto. There's a lot of utility cases that we are to announce this year. But I feel like all the markets that we work today are the ones that needs to move the money, which kind of distribute well from several industries that we see.
Just kind of, I'd like to maybe talk through, maybe let's differentiate maybe somewhat what these core products and use cases are, and kind of what the customer segmentation looks like, and in particular, how much of this is, say, like, hey, I'm a retail customer, like I want to go pay for my coffee with stable coins at the local Padaria or Starbucks or whatever, and how much of this is so businesses, like international businesses that are operating in Brazil that may not necessarily be accepting crypto, but it's just easier to maybe convert, their from kind of a back end operations perspective, it's just easier for them to convert some of their assets into crypto for, say, transferring out of the country or doing cross border payments or whatnot. Maybe talk a bit about like what's the differentiation between kind of that retail versus B2B lines of business. Brazil Crypto Report is presented by Kaleido. Kaleido is the most trusted digital assets and blockchain company by enterprises. Their product suite is the ultimate business blockchain cloud and is rated #1 for tokenization and #1 for blockchain as a service. Built by veterans of IBM Blockchain and Consensus, the Kaleido platform combines turnkey functionality with enterprise-grade security and scalability to power your application. Learn more and try it for free at kaleido.io.
We started as a B2C, and today we have the app where you can use crypto and access trading for several other use cases. But the goal is really we started as a B2C, and now we understand that we have several B2Bs that serve the B2C in a more broader way, and this is a way to scale the business. So this is one thing that we are focusing on. If we think about how we can scale as a B2B, there are several ways. Today, we have white label for crypto as a service. We have an OTC desk, which works very well to plug and play for liquidity for other players. We have credit cards, which you can white label it as well. And as soon as the checkout, as we have with some stores and some restaurants in Rio, not in a big scale, but it's something that we're planning to grow with big brands and partners that we're working at. I feel like then we will bring the utility, which is the next stage. If we think about what central bank is doing, like we're having the capital market all in the blockchain, and we see the corporate treasury use cases and the big volumes around. But at the end of the day, which will be the utility that will bring to the user to make it faster and easier and to have the money available at all times? If we think about the PIX, it solved a lot of problems, right? But not yet between countries and with a lot of IOFs and other taxes that we need to pay. And I feel like the blockchain is being proven itself as less cost, more efficient and more safe. And that's why all the governments in Brazil and other places are really looking into it and really tokenizing the economy to make sure that for the users it's simple and easier, but behind it, you have the best technology. So I feel like the goal from Transfero was to be the bridge between the fiat and the crypto world. And now we're kind of broadening it up to make sure that all the users and companies can use this benefit to move the money as they want in a Web3 or a DeFi or a TradFi, whatever they want, or different regions in the world with freedom and in an easier way. I feel like we started more as the mission of bringing financial inclusion, and Marlison, our CEO, is super connected with this mission. But now I feel we're kind of structuring the business more as a go in a more broader way, in a more, I would not say TradFi, but in a more institutional way, I would say.
And I know you also have a few other lines of business, like there's the venture arm, there's Transfero Ventures, which is doing some interesting things. I think there's a joint venture that the venture firm is doing with like the Fuse Capital guys, is doing some interesting tokenization financial products there. And there's some other irons in the fire. Like I feel like the Transfero empire seems to kind of every time I learn about it, it seems to be getting bigger and bigger in some fashion or another. So that's super interesting. And I think these types of services are definitely very required in Brazil and globally. So I think it's super interesting that you guys have been like kind of ahead of the curve by so far, like 2015, 2016 to still be around. Like that's, I mean, say what you will, like that's a long time to be alive in crypto. There's a graveyard of a lot of companies that haven't been around that long that maybe had better ideas or more interesting products or whatever, but they're not here and you guys are. So that's pretty impressive. So I think maybe one thing I wanted to just ask quickly about was, so I know Transfero, I think I should know this, but like I feel like Transfero has like one of these payments institution licenses from the central bank, or is like in the process of getting one. Yes, you do. Okay. But I wanted to, and then you've also kind of joined like AB Crypto and have become a bit more involved on like the regulatory front over the last probably year or 2 years ish. And now that looks like we're about to be getting regulation coming up from the central bank here within the next few months. Wanted to just talk through how Transfero is positioning itself for this kind of new world of post regulation in Brazil, and particularly given that like when you started out 8-10 years ago it was sort of the Wild West. So it's like how has that transition been from kind of going like you're Wild West by just default, right? There's no other real option at that point in 2016, right? But how is that transition kind of playing out internally?
It's impressive as we're in the bootstrap mode. So this is something impressive what we built so far. If we think about the ventures and other initiatives that we have BRX, we have Amas Bank, we have several initiatives. And the interesting part is we understand that innovation is always moving on, and we need to have use cases and other investment companies to build on top of our infrastructure the best use cases that we can have in the tokenized economy, which I feel a lot of them, I could get more details on that, but that's the goal, to really make sure that we have the innovation and the features that the consumer and the business will need. And the other part is, if we think about Drex, there is one question that everyone asks me. Do you think CBDCs will kill the stablecoins, or they will compete between each other? And if you think about the Drex and the Rio pilot, we're really connected with the plans and stuff, as we are regulated as VASP in several places like Bahamas, Switzerland, in Argentina. Here in Brazil, we have the IP licensing. We're really always really connected with the regulation and processes. We have a strong compliance team. We have a legal team that really is always connected with it. And with AB Crypto, I had a call this week with Bernardo Srud, and the way that we can really be closer to AB Crypto and to make sure that we are really connected with the guidelines and processes that it's been built, and how our experience can help. Because when you're regulated in different places, in different countries and jurisdictions, it makes it easy for you to have a vision on the legal interoperability, which is a challenge that we have nowadays, right? Each country is building it on, but crypto born as a global one. So how we will connect the regulatory framework worldwide to make sure that the user have this ability to pay in another country and the rule is the same per se, right? So if we think about the stablecoins and CBDC, I think it's an interesting topic to touch, because if we think about the structure in the economy, the central bank will continue having its reserves connected with the banks, new banks and institutions. The institutions will have their contracts with the user to choose the best token that they want to use, the best one with, if it's rewards or cashback, or utility for the ecosystem. So I feel like when we have the Real Digital with the Drex running, it will not impact the stablecoins per se. It will be like a playing cards game where they will work each one with this function. But the goal is really to have the safety and privacy and all the trilemma that the central bank is looking for, and make sure that the society feels comfort and trust being protected by the rules that are based, that cannot just inhibit the innovation. So we have to be a balance between consumer protection and innovation from the space to make sure we can always evolve and make the money easier and faster and seamless for everyone.
Yeah, the question of like, will Drex, the Drex CBDC, like kill off the need for a stable coin is kind of one of these perennial ones that keeps coming. I mean, we would have it in the US too. It's like, oh, we have, Fed dollars or Fed now. It's like, why do we need USDC if we have Fed now? And like, a simple answer I always give to this question is like, look, like maybe in like 20 years, sure, like maybe there's these things are totally redundant. And the government just sort of takes over. The government coins kind of take over, and the private issued stable coins are just done, right? Maybe that's certainly plausible. But in the meantime, it's like, look, like Fed now in the US is something that has been studied for, they've been like talking about this for almost like 10 years now, and there's still nothing to show for it aside from some papers. While USDC and USDT are things that exist and have multi-billion-dollar market capitalizations, people actually use them. And so these are things that exist now, right? And the things that currently exist, like once these things exist and have kind of like this momentum behind them, it's very hard for them to just disappear, unless the government issued product is significantly better in some form. So I feel like with the Drex, without having I mean, I don't think anybody who outside of like maybe like Fabio Arujo or somebody like really understands how this stuff's going to work, but I feel like at least in the Drex system, there's still going to be a need for these types of stable coins, at least for the cross-border angles of these things. Because I mean, that seems like that's going to be like a much later phase of development of the Drex system when they get to this cross-border stuff. They have to figure out like the domestic stuff first, then they'll figure out cross-border. So anyway, it's an interesting question to wrestle with, but it is, and I see why people ask it, but it's one of these things where it's like, it's like kind of yeah, but kind of no. But the answer is in 20 years, maybe these things will be irrelevant, but that's 20 years from now. And we're in this technological age where everything's moving lightning fast right now. We're not talking about 20 years from now, right? So I wanted to go back to Transfero really quick here. Are there any like kind of core use cases or like case studies of successful clients or businesses that you guys have really helped? Maybe companies, foreign companies that you've been able to help really enter the Brazil market, or even vice versa, via your product suite. Is there any like kind of marquee examples that you'd like to highlight or showcase there?
There are some, but I will focus on the Bybit. Bybit really entered in the Brazilian market, and we kind of doubled their trading volumes through their access via Real, via BRZ. So we feel like they really had a huge potential in Brazil, but the BRZ rails together with this structure that we offered on the ramps and pay-ins and payout really helped their business to grow and to be able to offer in an easier way for Brazilians all their services and offerings. So we had like 200% on growth. I think it's around 13 billion volume on trading volumes in Brazil based on this BRZ movement around. Because as we have the ramps and we have the stablecoin, it enables a lot of easy access from Brazilians to their offerings and services.
So the end users who are able to basically buy BRZ and they're able to on-ramp into the Bybit platform using BRZ, and then they're able to access all these different BRZ to Bitcoin or BRZ to whatever coin trading pairs essentially. So it's eliminating one step in the conversion instead of having to go from local currency into like USDT or into, it's eliminating one switch essentially, or one swap from those types of transactions. So maybe talk through like the various types of customer profiles that you guys are really focusing on right now under this new B2B kind of focus. And like, who are the types of entities or potential customers that you're really excited to be talking to, or you want, coming to you, that you think you can really help with your product stack?
We think about banking as a service. All the entities that don't want to build all bureaucracy in Brazil and wants to move the money. There are several use cases for import and export, marketplaces. If we think about exchanges to talk about liquidity pools, as we have an OTC desk, which is really strong. Banks and other companies that wants to be bankerized. We have several white labels for financial services. And if we think about stablecoins, all the partners that can build adoption and build use cases together using our tokens. So we have a stablecoin in BRZ, we have ARZ. So imagine companies like, I don't know, wines and other markets that needs to move the money between those countries in a way that we can do via stablecoins in a more efficient way, all in-house. It's something that's really being interesting, and there's several players that we're talking to about new business and use cases to launch soon.
I know that you guys have had a few customers, at least in the past, in like the online gambling, like online betting house. And not, I realize this has become like a very controversial subject the last couple of weeks. So like not trying to like poke the bear or like, wade into anything I shouldn't be wading into. But I know this has been, but I find like the example of like, looking at these online betting houses actually operate, like a lot of these guys are located, somewhere in Europe or wherever they are. And at least up until now, they haven't necessarily needed to have like a legal entity in Brazil. So they'll come and they'll have like a Pix integration or something, and then you can use like a Transfero or some other type of provider to basically kind of do all the back end moving of money on the back end, moving from Brazil, from the Brazilian accounts into their home base, I guess. But maybe kind of walk through like that particular use case and what type of, maybe walk through, like help us explain how it works, if even better than I just did. And then what types of maybe uptake are we seeing on that, especially that there's just so much fervor around this particular segment right now in Brazil.
It's true. It's the topic of the week. And the goal is really that, going again, Transfero is extremely regulated. So we work with all the markets that wants to move the money in and out in Brazil. If we think about this particular use cases and segment, we are extremely regulated. We have a compliance, we have the QYT, QYC. So we really work on our side. And with all the players that we do work, it's always aligned with a specific regulation that we are under the umbrella. So now we will have a clear time frame and a clear guideline for the betting companies, which will be 100% aligned. But for sure, we work with all the markets and always under our regulation and licenses that we have. And like in Brazil, crypto is not regulated so far, and we're regulated in IP, for example. So we really look for the umbrella on the oversight of the regulator and all the government to make sure that we're moving the money safely and in the right terms for all the markets.
And then this is where that payments institution license comes into play, I would assume, right? With being able to kind of manage these payments on behalf of these entities, whatever they might be doing, whether they're crypto exchanges or online betting houses or whatever types of like business they might be. They can kind of come in, they can plug into Transfero, and then they don't have to worry about trying to set up all their own payment infrastructure, getting their own licenses, all these kind of things in Brazil, but they can kind of plug into Transfero and then just use those rails essentially.
And to reinforce this topic, we have an IP and we have this part of the company that's called the asset, that we have funds that are overseen by CVM as well. So I feel like Bacen and CVM, we have all the regulation oversight under us in all the business to make sure that we're aligned with both of them, which is something additional to share.
Switching maybe away from Transfero just for a second, but I want to just ask, like, I know you took this job recently, you're kind of still, learning the ropes here, I guess, but what are your like personal objectives for Transfero? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish in your role here at Transfero? Like, what does success look like for you?
I have three goals actually. One is to build process to make sure that we can scale. We want to scale fast. And that's why we're looking for an investment fund, so an investment round. So we're bootstrapped so far, and we're in the moment to understand that maybe investment now can scale our business faster as we want to go. So I would say, one, build process and productize better for B2B all the solutions that we have. Marlison has this idea, this amazing idea about the Lego, but to make sure we can productize and scale by verticals, use cases, and have it clear in the market. The second piece is on investment to make sure that we have the right investors and build and scale as we want. And the third part is to expand internationally with a consistency to make sure that we can, via ventures, via all the innovation that we're building from the investment companies, to add features on top of our infrastructure and be able to provide services for big banks and new banks and players, which will really get consistency in our services. From the regulation standpoint, we are always compliant with all the regulation that we can see as VASP, but I'm sure that the crypto regulation will be an important spotlight for us to focus and to make sure that we'll change the economy and all the players will adjust to it. So we're really close to understand how we have to adjust to be able to continue compliant in Brazil and to expand internationally in all the countries where it's not so innovative as Brazil, like Africa and other places. And we really want to be there to bring financial inclusion and financial and social inclusion as it's a mission of the company as well. So we invest a lot in education and several topics related.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Was what does like the international expansion look like, kind of just beyond Brazil? I know there's obviously Argentina. I know there's some other countries in Latin America. Maybe talk a bit more about that. Like, what does that roadmap look like?
So I see a lot of features like between Europe and Latin. If we think about between continents, we do not have a player. We have several players that offers on and off ramps, pay in and pay out, but not globally, right? There's some that are regulated in the United States, some that are regulated in Europe, some in Latin. But at the end of the day, who is the global one that enables the money moving smoothly between all the continents that we have? And that's our goal, and that's what we're aiming for in a short expect way.
But do you have like a set list of like, these are the countries where we're going to be kind of launching next, but you just can't necessarily talk about them right now, like what specific countries they are?
I cannot mention exactly, but I can tell you that we are like 15 countries that we're ongoing on the regulation for VASPs in Africa, in Europe, in United States, several places to make sure that we're compliant. Today, we could do via partners, for example, but our goal is really to be, as we are today, we are independent. They build the Lego that we need. We do not need intermediaries through all the offerings on the blockchain. And that's what we're trying to build for our next stage, to make sure that we have all the licenses worldwide to enable us to do it with no intermediaries, the money movement. But we're going there. I believe we will get there. Of course, regulation, it's a long process, it's bureaucracy, it's a consistent work. We have great legal advisors worldwide. So I feel like our partners are really well positioned, and I feel like will help us to go targeting success in this area.
And then talk a bit more about the investment round that you guys are looking to raise. I wasn't actually aware of this. This is quite interesting. I didn't realize that you'd been bootstrapping this whole time either. That's pretty impressive. But maybe talk a bit more about just what's the, if you're saying details, like, is there a certain amount you're looking to raise? Like, what's the, like, who are you, anybody you're talking to in particular? Like any details that folks should know about, or any details that you can reveal publicly anyway about that?
For sure. So, we have a lot of NDAs in place when we have those types of conversations. But the goal is really to make sure that we get an investor that really see utility in what we're building, that is connected with the space and give us autonomy to continue building the way it is. When investors come, sometimes they change the focus on the company, and we do not want it to happen. We have a really clear plan on which solutions we want to offer and which markets we want to target. So we're talking to several people to understand who is aligned with this mission and who will really makes this successful partnership investing in the company. But the goal is really to scale the business and to make sure we can accelerate several structures and technology infrastructure that we have, that we want to scale it faster. But I can give you some updates soon.
No, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. That's pretty interesting. And then just kind of winding up here. I know you guys had like a really big presence at Web Summit Rio the last couple of years, and I think you're one of the kind of the foundational sponsors of that event, and really kind of foundational for even bringing that event to Rio in the first place. And I think the first year you guys were there, it was a little bit more kind of retail focused activation. This year is a bit more kind of B2B. And wondering what you guys have in store this year. If you've, I realize we're still 6 months out, but or maybe more than that. But what are you thinking for Web Summit this next year?
I believe Web Summit is an innovation event, so it brings a lot of ways that we are being innovative with the money and bringing other payment solutions and other solutions for financial services, which is a good place to stay and to spotlight our brand, especially for several other technology markets and markets that is looking for innovative ways to build their business. Web Summit is an international event, and it's impressive how Transfero is well known abroad Brazil, right? So a lot of people that I speak internationally, wow, you have the BRZ, it's unbelievable what you build. And this is really something that Web Summit help us get through, positioning well how we can solve the problem for several industries with innovation, especially in how to move the money and stablecoins and all the blockchain financial services offerings. So I feel Web Summit is a great partner. We'll be there next year. We continue being a sponsor. We'll be present in the Lisbon edition as well. Not so big as with the booth and stuff. We'll be in Rio next year. But I'm sure that Web Summit is a great partner to spotlight our solutions and connect with great brands.
Yeah, and then I guess last question would be just, you maybe it's just trying to tie a bow on this whole conversation here. We've been talking a bit about kind of the past and present and future of Transfero, and some of these ambitions that you have to kind of expand the product offerings here in Brazil, but also to expand a bit more globally. But I mean, what do you think it will take to really turn Transfero into a real global player when it comes to blockchain payments, crypto infrastructure?
Well, I feel really, as I mentioned, to have investment to scale faster, it's good. I feel regulation evolution will help us as well because we'll have clear rules per country and how to move the money in the more compliant way. And I feel like really to get our vision and to be consistent with what we're building. As we're in the market almost 10 years, and you know how startups and fintechs are easy to switch the gears all the time, and it's really bad for the business. So we have really focused, and if we get there, we're not changing the gears while we're going. I feel we'll be really successful on it.
I know you mentioned earlier that you started your career as a headhunter, actually, kind of working in the kind of connecting talent and all these types of things, or connecting talent with employers. And I wanted to just get your thoughts on like what's like the crypto kind of talent ecosystem like in Brazil from your vantage point, and maybe what are maybe like the goods, or maybe like the goods and the bads, or like the things that need to be worked on, or like anyway, would love your thoughts on that just from that perspective. That's quite interesting.
If I think about my experience, I joined Paxos and I was not from the space, and I learned very well. I was the PR speaking person for them after 2 months. So I feel like the most important thing is to be resilient, to be open to create new things, and not to be a quitter, really, because if we think about it's an early stage market, and everything that we want to build, we build from scratch, right? Everything that we're building. So I feel like we don't have a huge talent pool of people that knows very well the blockchain and the infrastructure and stuff. We're building a new solution from a new market, from a new tokenized economy. So everything is new. So you really need to find people, and the majority of them will be in other markets as well. But one, that it's open to change. Two, is really resilient, and it's able to do execution and strategy to build something from scratch, which is not easy. And the fourth piece, I would say, is just to really have empathy and connect with other players and be collaborative in a team play. Because if I think about companies in the space, if you work with business, for example, in sales, legal is super important for your role. Compliance is super important for your role. Product is really important. So how you will connect those minds and make sure you build the best thing for your customer and the best thing for the market, and build something that is needed by a pain that exists. So this really articulation, it's hard to find, and people quit a lot. But I feel like this is the main skills that I see that are important. Someone that really is resilient and is happy to build something from scratch.
Oh, thank you for that. I love that. I love the perspective of the headhunter, right? It's like such a unique like skill set and like vantage point on the world. So I love that. And then just to wrap up, I wanted to turn it back to you for any final thoughts that you might have. How can folks find you if they want to get in touch, or if they want to learn more about Transfero?
You can reach out via LinkedIn, Juliana Felipe Transfero. I'll be really happy to have discussions about innovation, the space, synergies in business, and several other topics. And if you want to know more, transfero.com is our website to know about our solutions, but I'll be happy to have a chat and explain more to you.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about Transfero, to tell us about your personal background, and really exciting to see what you guys are building there. Really exciting, some of the developments you're talking about. And so I just wanted to thank you for coming on, and also wanted to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on Brazil Crypto Report.